Poems have been hijacked like an airliner. Valuable, very, very valuable cargo on board. It's got a destination, and modern poets have hijacked it. They're saying it doesn't have to rhyme. Now, you just imagine if your pilot on your airplane said there has to be no rhyme or reason in how we fly this plane. Well, the form of poetry is what this gentleman Stauffer's worried about. And he says the form that poetry comes in affords us much delight. He says, quote, that poems may appeal to us on so many additional levels beyond just the words and ideas in them, is no adequate reason for neglecting or minimizing the delight they afford through the sheer beauty of their form. The sheer beauty of the form itself is enticing. And that's true. If you know, stopping by woods on a snowy night, who's it? Robert Frost, I believe. That's not the greatest, you know, subject matter ever. I can imagine better subject matter than saying that I had my horses, it was snowing, I stopped in the woods, and then I started up again. I can imagine better subject matter than that. But it's a great poem because of the form, because it's a poem. You know, if you just wrote, I had my horses and we stopped in the snow and I looked out and there's darkness and I wondered into my soul what was going on, and you didn't rhyme. I almost rhymed there accidentally, God forbid. And you didn't rhyme, then it wouldn't be anything but prose that wasn't organized and that was pretentious. Well, let us continue. He quotes Spencer and says that we may agree with Plato and with Spencer that, quote, soul is form, and doth the body make. So the poem's soul forms the body. Now, I don't agree with Plato and his idea of forms and all the metaphysical nonsense behind it, but let's just think about that for a second. If the soul of a poem is its form, which it bringeth from heaven with it, it shapeth the body of yonder poem. And the poem has to morph into the shape of what the form brings. Well, he says otherwise it fails to be a poem. He says this then is the progressive argument which this book develops. The nature of poetry is not mechanical. Its laws are not edicts. Wait a minute. So I stop in mid-sentence. The laws of poetry are not edicts. Poetry is not mechanical. Okay? Now, he then finishes that they are not edicts, but observations. The laws of poetry are observations. Very, very much like the law of gravity or the fact of evolution. It is not the case that we project this on and put a straitjacket on reality and we don't allow reality to do things outside the law of gravity. Oh, you know, contrived bastards that we are. Won't let gravity do anything except what it's supposed to. Bastards. No. We look at poetry and derive, observing the facts of what a poem is. We derive the laws of poetry from that basis. What is poetry? It's a certain phenomenon. Let us define it. The modern people want to turn that around and say, let us not define it. Poetry is therefore anything. It's stupid. Stupid is the only word I'll give it. Now then, let us continue. Its laws are not edicts, but observations. They are not forced upon poetry, but derived from it. So when I say it has to rhyme, has to have rhythm, has to have meter, has to have something, and not every poem is going to have to, you know, rhyme 1,001%. Some rhymes fail, and that's when you just wince a little bit and you say, he might have redone that line if he could. The joy, the sugar, the pure sugar, it's better than you can only eat a Kit Kat once, but you can eat a poem 1,000 times if it's good. If it tastes bad, you don't go back to it, you know, unless you've been trained to eat poison. He says, the laws are not edicts but observations. They are not forced upon poetry but derived from it. Then he analyzes this short poem. And we've basically made our point, but I'll give you the poem. We won't go over his analysis. But here's the poem he gives us from Housman, Housman. Into my heart an air that kills from yon far country blows. What are those blue remembered hills? What spires, what farms are those? That is the land of lost content. I see it shining plain, the happy highways where I went, and cannot come again. Housman, good poem. Now he goes through and he says you can't change this, you can't change that. He says this is a good poem because it's so inevitable and it hangs together so well. It's coherent, it's integrated. Now, it is not true that by defining poetry as non-rhyming, I am robbing poetry of something, okay? Poetry rhymes. The definition of what poetry is was derived from poetry. Some of you may be very confused about why it is that people in the modern world then would be motivated to do something so sick and twisted as to define poetry as to be non-rhyming. And my answer to that is that you need to start investigating the history of philosophy.